Hey everyone, we are coming towards the end of Bible study here, and that's crazy. It'll be April 16th on Thursday, which is really there's this one and then another one. So there's three more total. But yeah, this week is about mental health and faith. When I'm doing my part, I'm going to do three questions, and that's one is how do Christians think about mental health disorders? Two is how do we find healing? And in that, I'm going to talk about medicine and like things like that. And three is how do we help other people who are struggling? So, very briefly, I'll just say I'm going to be talking a little bit about how, you know, we can't, like, there's some Christian circles that talk about, like, well, if we're struggling with something, we must have sinned and we must be kind of bearing the consequence of that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how, yes, all brokenness is a result of sin, but you can't draw like a one-to-one correlation to like I sin, so this is happening. We should evaluate ourselves when we're suffering with mental health and anything, and take a look at our faith. But we need to have grace on ourselves, mercy, compassion for ourselves. Um, so that's a part of what I'm talking about. But I'm also going to talk about how mental health also is a physical problem for many people. Um, And that's going to lead me into talking about how one of the things we can think about is medicine. So, just for your reference, there's a really good John Piper has this video. It's kind of old now, but he tries to answer the question. Should Christians take medicine, or really should we just solve the problem spiritually? And he talks about how we shouldn't separate physicality and spirituality like that, and how we often we often will have like we wouldn't say, oh, you're thirsty, you should pray about it, right? We should drink water, right? And that's kind of like a small example, but it is sometimes necessary for us to use physical means to help kind of pick ourselves up a little bit so that we can connect to God. um, we uh, I think of it like a crutch. Like if you break your leg, you need a crutch, and the crutch doesn't heal you, just like um, antidepressants or SSRIs don't heal you, but they serve as kind of like a crutch. They prop you up a little bit. They kind of pull you a little out of the pit so that you can heal. And for us as believers, sometimes the medicine that we might need brings us to a certain place so that we can connect to God and let Him heal us. And so that leads to what I'm going to be talking about is one of the ways that we heal is through lament. And we talked about this in D groups. Hopefully all of you went through that with me or one of the girls or Josh or somebody. But lament basically says, I can't handle this on my own. I need to bring this before God and sometimes before others. And I need to get it all out there, all the junk, all the mess, all the feelings, because I trust God alone to handle that and to bring me out of this. A lot of times when we are having mental health problems or we're having like major anxiety or emotions or whatever it is, we hide from God and we go, okay, I can pick myself up a little bit and then I'm going to re-engage. And that's exactly the opposite of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to bring it before God. And this is everywhere, especially in the Psalms. But you see touches of it everywhere where the encouragement is like, bring these things to God, bring your burdens to Jesus. He's going to give you rest, right? I don't even have that verse in the study, but that's one of them because he cares for you, it says in First Peter. And then I'm going to do a little part about helping those who are hurting, which I'm not going to talk about too much here. But in the Bible study itself, I've chosen to kind of focus on Philippians 4, because in Philippians 4, Paul talks about how, when we can find this peace of God that surpasses or transcends all understanding. And the idea there, when you say peace of God, there's two kinds of peace. The way I think about it, there's peace with God. That's like we've been reconciled to Him. There's no sin barrier. But then once we receive the peace of God, peace with God, we can receive the peace of God. And that's the kind of peace that acknowledges that he is God and that he can handle whatever it is that we have to bring to the table or whatever circumstances come our way. And it doesn't always make sense. Sometimes the peace of God, which surpasses or transcends all understanding, means, man, sometimes things are a mess. And yet, because of my faith in God, I have peace that all things are working together for the good of those who love him. And in the end, God is good and is bringing good things to bear. So that's a part of it. And then Paul tells us how to find the peace. I kind of highlight four things. One is that we rejoice or we give thanksgiving. So it's important for us to remember when we're in the pit, we look back and we say, okay, I can see, but I've been in the pit before. I can see the good things that God has done. He has a track record of good. So it's really important for us to take account of those things. And at the same time, we have to be honest with God, even about our really feelings that we're like, should I say that to God? Yes, we got to get it out there. He knows about it anyway. So we're getting it out there. We're processing with God and with other people sometimes. And then some of the work we can do is we can train ourselves to set our mind on earthly things. I used to believe that when I was really I'll talk about it on Thursday, but I just had a really bad time of anxiety. I just didn't believe that I could control my thoughts. I thought my thoughts were out of my control, but my wife, Chelsea, and others convinced me, no, you can train yourself to put your mind on godly things, on good and godly things. It's very hard to do, but that's important for us to do. And then we can imitate those we want to emulate. In other words, who do I know around me that has peace? Who I feel like is a peaceful, not anxious, not depressed person. What do they do? How do they live? How can I start to imitate them? And that's all in Philippians 4. You'll see it. I was trying to not be too prescriptive about this. Feel free to talk through these things. Like, how do we do it? Which ones are hard? Why are they hard? I hope we can have a good conversation there. And then in the next verses, these verses, Paul is kind of addressing a financial gift that he receives from the Philippians. And he's saying, hey, I'm so thankful that you sent me this gift. Also, I want you to know that I've learned to be content in all situations. When I have a lot of resources, I'm content. When I don't, I'm content. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about where are we content? So let's look at ourselves. What areas of our life do we feel content in? And what areas do we not feel content in? And what is Paul actually saying in verse 13? It's not like, oh, like I can run a marathon because I know Jesus. Like, sure, but that's not what this verse is talking about, right? It's about learning to find peace. So the final section of the Bible study is about healing. So I'd like you to kind of lead a conversation, okay, what are some ways that you or people have begun to heal from mental health issues? And then on the flip side, how do we care for people who are struggling? And then the last part is, I'd like you to walk through a lament psalm. I've given you two options, 42 and 77. You can do both if you have time, but I encourage you to read through and pick one to prioritize and to try to identify all the different parts of the lament. And the idea is you're teaching your people what lament looks like. And then in your prayer groups, when you pray at the end, in section number 5, I have a basic question of, how does this week's topic impact you, and let people be open there. But I'd encourage you to use the lament model to pray. So first, talking through like, okay, how has God been faithful to us just this week or in our lives? What is hard for you right now? How do we want God to help us? Why are we frustrated right now? And then you can kind of lead them in a close of like the Psalms do a lot. I'm struggling right now, but God, you've been faithful then. You're going to be faithful now. You're always going to be faithful to me despite what's going on. I can't always see it, but I'm going to hang on to you in the middle of this. So hopefully this isn't as rigorous as some things we've done in the past, but hopefully you can have a good conversation here. So I think that's all I've got for you. That's all for now. I'm going to try to figure out how to stop this video, and there we go. Okay, see ya.